And now it's, oh, I was going to say now it's going to be 10 minutes. And I've still got this dumb thing. It's been brought to my attention by my co-host that all of my, what I think is cool, and I'm switching between all of this crap. What it really comes down to is I need to pay attention to what I'm doing. And so that I don't have this unmuted as I'm going to get confused by my own voice starting to talk to all these other things. So you probably won't see much of that. I don't know if I got to take a break. I might put a picture or something up. But I think I will stick to just my Vistage and possibly once in a while the side chat if it's starting to get or not our side chat, but I should say the chat if it's starting to get interesting. Well, right before I got on, I said something like a jackass as always do to limber us up. But you two gentlemen were talking about something going on. What was it? Or anything? What's going on, Brett? What's going on, Common Sense? I'm going to try to stay on my game, but I feel about like 70% right now. Bear with me, boys.
Yes, nature appears to have declared war on the ogre again, doesn't it?
Allergies with this harvest time. And I don't even, I mean, I already told y'all, and that's enough explanation. But if you can't hear it in my voice right now, it's just the post-nasal drip and not cocaine. It's like you hear that, it's usually like good connotation. Post-nasal drip, well, you did a good line. No, I haven't done no cocaine in over a decade. This is just like horrible crap that's dripping down the back of my throat, destroying my vocal cords and making me sound like I'm a, you know, a prepubescent teen, you know, going through the registers like, yeah, pretty soon be like, how you doing, Brett? Good to see you. Got this, Caracal. Glad y'all could show up.
I didn't know Prankster Lot was on today.
Now that you come to mention it, yes, we seem to have you know, this kind of Back to the Future scenario, whereas we're looking at the old prankster lock of the future.
Oh dear! I think my friendship has now ended with Prankster.
Yeah, I hope time is a lot more gentle with him than it was with me, boys. That's all I can say. He's such a pretty young boy, you know, handsome young, like Hansel. You know, looks like he's just ripe for the oven. That boy does. He's pretty.
So you're effectively wishing Hillary Clinton on him, are you?
Oh dear! Oh dear!
I seen like a bunch of stuff. Sometimes I wonder. I get, you know, I look at Twitter once in a while, and I see these things, and it's like they show Trump in the White House, I guess, and it's like showing off the White House Halloween decorations, and there's a picture of Hillary Clinton. I want to know if that's real. Is there? And if not, there should be, right? Shouldn't there be a picture of some? I mean, the White House is huge. Shouldn't there be a picture of all of our first ladies in the White House somewhere?
I think there may be a chance, but I think, as I say, no matter how, I think I know which picture you refer to. And no matter how big the White House is, I mean, just given how many presidents you've had, I doubt there will be enough room for images of that scale for each first lady. I mean, surely there can only be so many rooms.
I don't think they make their, well, there's some smaller, I guess. But if you look at the artwork in the White House, most of them are those humongous portraits, damn near life size, in some cases larger than life size. I think that was borderline, right? That might even be larger than life size. It's a huge old painting. Probably a joke, right? That's what you're telling me.
I think that's, I've got the feeling that's a hoax. Yes.
Yeah.
Did anybody see that little clip of Donald Trump basically, you know, welcoming kids and giving them goodies, you know, doing the Halloween thing, which of course is not at all fake, because a hell of a lot of children live right next to the White House and would come for trick-or-treating.
Well, those were the media's children.
Yes. Did you see the one where he gets confronted by the blow-up dinosaur?
No.
No.
Well, there were one or two tweets going around. You know, there was some kid that had some kind of dinosaur costume on, you know, Tyrannosaurus Rex. And it seemed to be almost like some kind of blow-up model that was on the kid, if you know what I mean. And I just saw one or two tweets saying, you know, Trump must obviously have some sort of fear of dinosaurs or something, because he looked dreadfully uncomfortable when he was confronted by this kid in the dinosaur suit.
Still, not as bad as being confronted by a Pikachu, full-grown man in a Pikachu shirt.
If you say so. I just wonder if you know, Trump may have his sort of fill of phobias.
Germophobia.
Remember,
that's when you said that's what I thought. 'Cause it's like a rubber suit, right?
If you remember, there was that moment where he held Theresa May's hand, and it was afterwards sort of released, I think, from the White House, that he has a fear of steps.
Yes.
And therefore he was.
Well, you can see how he carries himself
to
up
her hand. And there has been 1 or 2 times when he's arrived at airports, you know, when they come down the steps, you know, they arrive with Air Force One and they come down the steps, the First Lady and the President. And once or twice he's kind of held onto the hand of Melania and she's kind of batted him away. So it must be something he perhaps does instinctively. And
well, he's came out and he's said why. He's talked about that.
You know, and she smacks away the hand as in, look, this is not going to look good if they see you clutching my hand come down the staircase.
No, he's overly afraid of falling, Brett. He said it at his rallies like at least 3 or 4 times. And he thinks of Gerald Ford, and he's probably glossing over the fact that he doesn't want to fall and break his neck like his grandma probably told him 1,000,000 times. The guy's, yeah, he's you can tell. I'm not mocking him either. I'm gonna laugh because it's funny. I don't want to. You all boys know me. I'm pretty inordinate about my desire to show the president respect, whether it's Barack Obama, whoever the president is at the time. Not, and to be honest, not quite as much respect as I show your queen. Some people think it's a joke or whatever, but the Britishers never heard me besmirch the queen or do anything but show respect, because you know, there's certain.
I've never heard you besmirch the queen. I've only heard you tell audiences that I'm besmirching the queen. Yeah.
Well, you were the one that said you wanted her bloody kicked out of Buckingham Palace.
Here we go again.
Nancy, do you have something in common with Jeremy Corbyn then?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
no, Britisher. I think you're one of the only.
As me and the other friends of his call him. Yes.
I think you're one of the only people that stood up and you know, knew the truth, or maybe not. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. But the fact about it, everybody says, "Oh, we paid for the wedding of and all this and that, and we paid and we paid." If the House of Windsor was to take what they give into the economy of Great Britain away, there would be a giant net loss. There is no loss from the state things that go on. It's much like the mayor of the city of London. It costs you to have the position, and it's the same with the Queen. They don't cost Britain's money. They actually make y'all a shitload of money. Love the Queen, the Queen Elizabeth. Because you're born to that, and so you have to listen to the ones that are raising you up, you know, and telling you what it is to be a queen and what it is to be a monarch and what it means and the self-sacrifice. When you're actually really powerful, you do whatever you bloody want, right? There's been other kings and queens that kings especially we could mention.
Well, I think
in her case, she took the advice, and she is a monarch to be honored.
I think you have to resist the temptation to be some kind of Middle Eastern potentate with large portraits of yourself on house fronts. Yes. Right.
She doesn't strike one as that way. I mean, I always go to the example where the gentleman broke in.
He's British.
Well, remember when the gentleman broke into Buckingham Palace and then ended up, he got to her boudoir. He's in her bedroom. And when the guard actually finally got there, he was sat down having tea. And what her final word to him was, "Well, young man, this is very unusual, the way that you've." And I mean, he even said he was going there to kill her. Probably he didn't never come out and said yes, but when confronted with that person that is that culture that has taken to heart the weight of her situation, and I've been accused of sucking all the oxygen out of the air. So I need to let you boys talk. Here I am kissing the ass of your potentate.
Well, I mean, it's good practice for when we take over again.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. When we come back.
You know, I mean, I will gladly take the position of Viceroy of North America.
I don't know what to say. Best of luck with that.
No, it's a work in progress.
Yeah. I'm thinking Moan Labe comes to mind. I think that's. I know you really love the Roman stuff, but that's Greek.
Yes, it's Greek with a Spartan accent, I believe.
That was very Spartan. You know those Spartans, man. And now, look, I'm gonna say this because it's on my mind, but we're gonna welcome Wild Smile here in a second. And that was my problem. Wild Smile was like about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when I was told you were going to be on here. I've seen your stuff periodically, but honestly, I hadn't been subbed. And so I'm looking for you, and I was like, oh, Wide Smile, because I've just seen your avatar. As you can see, it's above me now. No, it's the reason I couldn't find it is because it's Wild Smile, and that's correct, I believe. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget my idea. Forget about it. It was just some dumb old nerdy Roman Greek stuff that me and TheBritisher get into from time to time.
No problem. I dig the instruments that you got up hanging. Looks the contrast of the what is that, like chestnut on the? It's pretty cool. I like it. I dig it.
The bass.
Yeah, I thought that was a bass. I was actually going to be bold enough and go, "Is that a Chapman stick?" But I don't think it is.
It's an Ibanez BTB 5-string bass.
Nice.
I like Ibanez, but look, man, we can't get into that too much because here's the deal. I'm going to introduce myself. I don't know if you know TheBritisher. I think that you've been talking to the Common Senseguy a little bit, more than myself or TheBritisher, but we want to get to know you. So without me filleting myself or allowing you to tell me about how cool my instruments are, I appreciate that too. We'll move right on along. And I'm the ogre. I'm the laughing ogre. This is TheBritisher with me. He'll introduce himself in a second. We started this thing about 9-10 months ago, and we like to get interesting folks on, kind of hear their ideas. We may or may not agree with them sometimes. In your case, I think it's going to be pretty smooth sailing for everybody. But we pride ourselves in no gotchas. We pride ourselves in allowing every voice to be heard, whether we vehemently agree or adamantly disagree. So I'm the laughing ogre, and I think the rest of the boys can introduce themselves.
Well, good evening. I'm TheBritisher. I'm from where the history is from.
Every time. Well, as you can probably tell, I'm the Common Senseguy. I was speaking to you earlier on the internet. I'm really happy and really looking forward to actually speaking to you, especially I presume that you're from California, or at least living there.
Yeah, gotta love California in 2017.
Exactly. It's a hot topic. It's a hot topic.
It's funny because I remember like my parents when they talk about like meeting people from California in like the 80s and 90s. Being from California, you were like instantly cool. People wanted to know you. People like you. Now it's the inverse of that. People are like, hey, stay the fuck away from me, man.
They got the crosses up saying "Die liberals, die."
Yes, I was just thinking that, of course, when it comes to alternative names, I think, California would more than likely be referred to as the hive of degeneracy by Alex Jones.
Unfortunately, it's seeming more and more accurate as each day goes by, though.
Well, speaking about that, what's actually made you start? I know you've been doing your channel for a little while, but for people that obviously don't know who you are, do you want to give a little bit of insight on why you started your channel and what you actually do on your channel?
Yeah, so I created my channel, I think, in September. The very first video I did was about that lady, I think her name was Zarna Joshi, that like lost her shit over a guy saying he made a joke that he was humongous, and that got internet attention. And I saw I'm humongous, and he's a big guy. He's got a big gut, so I was like, that's good stuff, dad humor. And so
are you sexually harassing me? Are you sexually harassing me?
How dare you? Yeah, and
don't touch me.
We all laughed, but then she released her. It was like a short video series, and it was the most insane thing I had ever seen at that time. Of course, I didn't know what I was in store for, but that was the first time I'm like, I'm gonna start a channel like those people do and just kind of get my thoughts out, because I knew I was boring the people in my personal life with just ranting and raving about things I was just pissed off at, things that I felt were dishonest. So at first, it was a very simple response channel. It was probably the worst video I've ever seen. Like, I went back and watched it a while ago. It's awful. I actually unlisted it because I'm like, I can't. My channel's big enough now that I'm embarrassed about this video. So anyway, a couple of months later, and I did keep uploading like 2 or 3 times a day back then. It's still, I sometimes have those days now. But I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and one struck a chord with me. It's called Righteous Indignation. It's written by Andrew Breitbart. What's it called? The tagline is, well, I'm trying to remember it. It's "Excuse me while I save the world," I think is what it's called, and it's about the rise of the new media. And yeah, it's a very pretentious, very humble subtitle, but it's a very good book. It's about essentially how he started off as a liberal and he went to college. He went to Tulane. But later on in the story is what I found most interesting. He talks about Matt Drudge and how he broke the Monica Lewinsky scandal, essentially one man taking on the entire political establishment. It was just interesting to hear his take on that because I wasn't old enough to really understand what was happening back then. And then he talks about how Andrew Breitbart helped build the Huffington Post and built his own news outlet. And the idea of fighting the media, which I've hated the media my whole life. I've just always known they've been feeding me an absolute line of bullshit, and I know that a lot of people feel the same way. So it was right around that time after listening to Righteous Indignation where I said, I can utilize YouTube and cover events, kind of do, I don't want to call it journalism, but reporting, I guess is the best way of it's citizen reporting.
Citizen journalism. I got to give you that. That's what you do, yes.
Yeah. And yeah, I do just read the news, but I attempt to read the news and then evaluate the evidence being brought forward and do a little bit of research to make sure we're not being completely lied to. So for me, I got really, really passionate about it. So.
No, I think that's how most of us start. Well, not necessarily the book, but I think that's how most of us would have started, where we start talking to our parents or start talking to our friends, and we just end up boring the crap out of them, as you so eloquently put, and then get told to go and do something with it, right, or just stop talking about it. So we go do something about it.
Right, and there were a couple of moments on TV where I said, okay, I don't agree with that guy. I can't remember if I'd started my channel at this point, but this pushed me down the conservative path, and I do still consider myself like libertarian. Someone called me alt-light recently. I really hope I'm not alt-light. I mean, I guess people who are alt-light I don't dislike, but I don't consider myself alt-right or alt-light or any of that. Libertarian. I'm all for liberty. But anyway, the thing that struck a chord with me, and like I said, I can't remember if this was before or after my channel started, was Seth Meyers. Following Bernie Sanders losing the nomination, he had a show where it was the most smug thing I've ever seen somebody on TV like do to their audience. He's like snapping in the camera's face. He's like, "Wake up, America!" And it's funny because you can apply this comment that he just says following him snapping the fingers in the camera's face like he's talking to a bunch of morons. Like he was so condescending. The statement he says is something along the lines of, "You guys don't get to be angry now that the play or that Kobe did a slam dunk with a different arm," something to that effect. And he goes, "Well, if that's the case, then why are you so pissed off about Trump?
Yeah.
If that's the case, why are you so outraged now?" It's these people have no consistent principles. They attack people based on who they make their enemies, and they use the politics of personal destruction to bring them down.
No, definitely. Now that you're saying about different politicians, let's move on to, I believe, is one of your favorite person, who's Anthony Weiner.
Anthony Weiner.
What do you think about your senator?
Oh my God, is he a senator from California? I didn't know that.
I thought he was. Your main senator.
That wouldn't surprise me. That would not at all surprise me. I know that Scott Weiner is
That's the one.
Congressman. He's the one that passes. Yeah, we've got way too many Wieners in politics. All puns aside. One's sexting 15-year-old girls, and the other one's making it legal to give people HIV.
Yeah, we'll go with the HIV ones. We'll go with the HIV one.
Okay,
sorry,
yeah.
Boys, I'm just doing a check. Am I still echoing, Britisher?
No,
I'm doing everything. All right, thank you, boys. Carry on. So, too many wieners. That's where you're at.
Too many dicks on the dance floor, man. It's essentially the argument in favor of decriminalizing the willful, that's the key word here, willful transmission of HIV. It's not like, oh, it was an accident, it was an honest mistake. No, they're making it legal, or have made it legal, to willfully infect somebody with the disease. Because the argument is, well, people who have HIV are stigmatized. Well, maybe people who are diseased should be stigmatized a little bit. You've got to live with who you are and the decisions you make. And the argument that and this is something that Tucker Carlson brought up on his show. It's the only show I watch on Fox besides Greg Gutfeld. He said, why don't we care about people with tuberculosis or anything like that? It's because they don't belong to a protected group. The whole thing with HIV is it is a representative disease of gay people, and gay people are a major chunk of the supposed oppressed groups in modern America.
So they can intentionally give you a disease?
Yeah. Because the feelings might be hurt.
Yeah. I thought there was another reason behind it as well. I thought it was the fact that Congressman Weiner was actually infected with HIV himself, and he wanted to use...
Yeah, it's complete speculation on my part. I back this up by just taking a look at him and going, that guy looks like has AIDS.
Oh dear.
But at the same time,
and we'll shy away from that. I think the British
will also an advocate
based on looking at him. We're not going to assume that he has HIV at this moment.
Yeah, it was a joke. Whenever I said it in my video, it was totally a joke.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I would rather people get the context and not come back and be like, Ogre and Britisher had a guy on that said that Anthony Weiner has AIDS because he looks like a faggot and he's skinny.
Yeah, that's definitely not what I was saying, but he looks sickly is what I would say. But again, that was more only like an ironic musing. Although I do find it interesting that he's an advocate for an experimental HIV treatment drug that I believe he takes. It's a preventive HIV treatment drug.
Yeah, that's the reason why I thought, because I didn't get it from
there's evidence.
Yeah, I didn't get it from your channel. That's the bit that I got it from, the fact that he takes medication for it.
Hey, Britt, how much do you know about Weiner? Just kidding.
Well, I mean, I heard the story, that basically it was now being relegated to being a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. And what would interest me in this regard is, given that you are in California, the land of the heathens, how is it actually going down there? I mean, what is the public reaction to this? Because
people hate it. I don't know how they pass laws like this. I don't know a single person that read that and going, that's a good thing. Every person I've talked to it about is like, so we've got to move now because also these people can donate blood now. You can donate blood if you have HIV.
Yes. Yep.
It's just the whole thing just makes you go, wait, what? Who authorized this? Who put this?
The argument regarding the blood is that the blood gets tested anyway, and you think, well,
and they pay them for it,
and you just think, well, okay, the blood may get tested anyway, but what is the point of somebody willfully giving you useless blood?
Yeah, what are you going to use?
Well, Brett, it's because they pay them for it. Plasma. So, I mean, think of it this way. If I don't even want to make a bunch of labels. If you have an agenda that seems strange to me, and there are a group of people that would, if they could, go donate useless blood and get 15, 20 quid a shot. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. But they can't because they have to put on there, I have HIV. What they've basically done is allowed people, I think you can donate plasma or blood every 3 or 4 days. So that they've made it so that every 3 or 4 days, a bunch of, and they will, that would be the only reason to donate it, Britt. And
over here, you don't get any money for blood.
You shouldn't. I think it might be only plasma here too, Brett.
You don't get any money for donating blood, and over here it is clearly they are prevented from giving blood because one just doesn't see the point. I mean, what would be the purpose of taking blood which is infected? So basically, you allow someone to knowingly give you blood that is infected because it makes him feel good to convince himself that he is doing his bit by contributing blood that no one can use.
They don't even have a purpose for the blood. Like you would think that at the very least they could say, hey, here's a bad idea, but it has some good things that come with it. They don't even have any good things that come with it. Just some hypothetical feelings about somebody that, as far as I know, gay people are against this too. They're like, well, wait a minute. I don't want HIV. I've also heard these people say, well, HIV isn't the disease it was 20 years ago. You can actually be treated. Okay. Does the state of California plan to pay for it all? It's not a very cheap procedure or a treatment process. And on top of that, you're not guaranteed to live. It's a case-by-case basis. So yeah, it's still a deadly disease. It's just insane.
That's the bit that really annoyed me when I was because I did a video literally about an hour after you put your video out, but believe it or not, which is kind of weird considering how far away I am from yourself. But that was the bit that got to me quite a bit, is the fact that so many people were coming out and saying, "Oh, it should be okay. It's not a problem if they come out and people with HIV do this." It's like, yeah, but it is. That's the reason why it's being decriminalized from a federal prosecution to a misdemeanor, so they can actually do this. Do you not understand the law at all? That's the reason why it's being decriminalized, because you can't knowingly give blood that has that when you have HIV, you can't knowingly give that. It's still classed as a felony at that point. And now that's the reason why it was taken away as a felony. So it was only down as knowingly giving, as in individual cases, as a misdemeanor. But that's the reason why it was only downgraded to a misdemeanor and declassified as a felony, so they could give blood in general. Which, as you quite rightly made a good point, of saying there's almost no reason for them to give blood in general for anybody that's got HIV. I suppose you could come out with two different points on this one, though. You could come out and say that, as what Ogre did, you could say that you could use the plasma from the blood, but also as well, I don't know, because I'm not not anything to do with medical. But could you not use the HIV blood that's already infected with HIV with people that are already HIV positive for people that have had accidents? Would you not be able to do that at all?
Yeah, but couldn't you also give the people who have HIV regular blood? I mean,
couldn't you give people that have hepatitis blood? No, look, man.
That's what I said. I wasn't sure.
And listen, just to clarify, you can't use plasma from HIV, somebody that's HIV positive, and give it to somebody that's not, unless you want them to have HIV. It's not like that once you get the plasma from the hemoglobin or whatever it is, the nomenclature might be lost on me. It's not like then it makes it okay. No, I also thought this title, this headline was hilarious. Anthony Weiner gets hard time, wild smile. Isn't that good?
It's pretty good. That was actually the first thing I noticed when I got on him. Like, that's a great headline.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I just brought that. It's off topic. I just thought I won't get a chance to bring it up. So I was going to show the title and then carry on with what we were doing. Listen, you can't, in my humble opinion, as long as Common Senseguy can't come up to me on the street and kick me in the groin, well, then I don't think he should be, as long as that's because if he just came up to me on the street and kicked me in the groin, that's a felony. That's assault and battery with intent to do bodily damage. And so that would be a felony. So if that's the case, if he knowingly gave me a bloody cold, then that should be you can't knowingly give somebody something that causes them pain and anguish. It does tie directly in. The reason you can't kick me in the groin while smile is because it hurts me. And that is why I can't give you the flu knowingly. In other words, if I sneeze on you and you get it, okay, well, that's part of being in the world. But if I put a little bit of my snot in a sorry about this. If I put a little bit of my snot in a syringe and squirt it into your beer, well, then that's kind of a felony, in my opinion. That's how
and it should be.
Yeah, but so is just going to have sex with somebody when you know you've got HIV, just in general, just going to have sex with somebody.
Gotta tell them.
Yeah. And not telling them that's still classified as a felony. You know you have HIV. If you give it to somebody else who doesn't know that they have HIV and who doesn't know they're going to get it,
should be.
That is almost a death sentence. Committing murder, or at least thinking you're going to.
Well, the argument now is that they have such good treatments that it's not murder, that you can live with it, but it's also what, $400 or $500 a month. It's oh my god.
Oh wait, that's right. Single payer healthcare. That's California thinks they're going to be able to pull that off. So,
man, I feel bad for folks like you that can think logically and live in California. It has to be, especially Southern California, it has to be getting difficult.
Here's the thing: there is a massive disconnect between Northern California and Southern California. I almost exclusively meet, except outside of bigger cities, I exclusively meet conservatives. If I bring up a comment about anything, they're always like, yeah, it's all fucking George Soros. They really got to hang that motherfucker. Like, the average person says this to me. And it's just funny to me. and that brings me to something I wasn't sure if I was going to bring up. I'm not sure if you guys have heard the state of Jefferson, but I see in, you know, my humble little county, I see lots of bumper stickers and advertisements for the state of Jefferson. And it'll actually probably, I could bring this up later on when we talk about Calexit, but I personally feel like Calexit is a way of undermining the secession from Northern California into Jefferson, because they know that the voters here are disgruntled. People here don't feel like their opinions are heard. The farming areas up in Northern California are completely fucked over by all of the big cities down south. So it's something to think about. Definitely, if you're interested.
Just to clarify.
And this, hey, Brett, hang on one second. Please keep that thought in your mind. This won't happen often, boys. We all know this because we don't get a lot of donations, but we just got a super chat. Mr. Stepwise, he says, "Dear Ogre, please use this donation to buy a nice cup of Wiener Melange." All right, listen, very funny, very funny. We sure appreciate it. All donations will go to the Britisher starting as soon as I get this package together and send him the money. Thank you very much. Carry on, Brett.
Yes, just to basically catch up here, because frankly you're kind of 14 steps ahead of me at this moment. What is the story behind the state of Jefferson?
Okay, so this goes back to right before World War I, I think. Here, I'm gonna bring up, just so I don't get it wrong. Proposed Pacific state. It has a Wikipedia page and everything. We've got a little flag, and the idea is to take a little bit of Oregon too, which we're like, hey, not only do we want to pull ourselves away from the complete retardation that is Southern California, we also want a little bit of Oregon. You know, we're gonna ask. You gotta make a big ask. That way.
No.
Anyway, so yeah, the state of Jefferson is a proposed U.S. state that would span the contiguous, mostly rural area of southern Oregon and northern California, where several attempts to separate from Oregon and California respectively have taken place. This region on the Pacific coast is the most famous of several that have sought to adopt the name of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. Jefferson, who sent the Lewis and Clark expedition into the Pacific Northwest in 1803, envisioned the establishment of an independent nation in the west portion of Northern America, and he dubbed the Republic of the Pacific. Hence, the association of his name with regional autonomy. The independence movement, rather than statehood, is known as Cascadia. I've never heard of that before. The name Jefferson has also been used for other proposed states. Blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to get to the point, the part. Here we go. It's got a long history, apparently, because it just this is a big ass article. In October 1941. Okay, so it was right before World War. Right after World War. No, I thought it was earlier than that. All right. I need to stop thinking out loud. I'll just read. In October 1941, the mayor of Port Orford, Oregon, Gilbert Gable, said that the Oregon counties of Curry, Josephine, Jackson, and Klamath should join with the California counties of Del Norte, Siskiyou, and Modoc to form a new state later named Jefferson. He was motivated by the belief that these heavily rural areas were underrepresented in state government, which tended to cater more to populous areas. On November 27, 1941, a group of young men gained national media attention when, brandishing hunting rifles for dramatic effect, they stopped traffic on U.S. Route 99 south of Eureka, the county seat of Siskiyou County, and handed out copies of a proclamation of independence stating that the state of Jefferson was in patriotic rebellion against the states of California and Oregon and would continue to secede every Thursday until further notice. The state split movement ended quickly, though not before Del Norte County District Attorney John Leon Childs of Crescent City was inaugurated as the governor of the state of Jefferson on December 4th, 1941. The first blow was the death of Mayor Gable on December 2nd, followed by the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th. Those in favor of splitting the state focused their efforts on the war effort, which crippled the movement. Coincidentally, the state of Jefferson was one of the few places in the continental USA to be subject of an attack during World War II, when Japanese pilot Nobuo Fujita dropped bombs on the Oregon coast near Brookings on September 9th, 1942. So it just goes on because it's got a pretty long history, but it goes back to 1941.
That sort of fairly sums it up, doesn't it? But would this place have a capital that would be recognizable to anybody?
Yes, Reading, I believe. It's just a stone's throw away from where I live. I've been to Reading many times.
No, Reading, I've been there too, but recognizable to anyone. You're talking, yeah, it's not recognizable to anybody but you and I, Wild Smile. I mean, I know where Reading is. They got great olives there. There's usually a Mexican standing out in front of the TA truck stop with like a cart, and he's got a bunch of olives there. I recommend the jalapeno and or garlic stuffed olives. They're very good, and it's like $5 a jar, man. You come out east here, and man, 15, 20, they just rob you. But nobody knows where Reading is, sir. No. So recognizable capital, state of Jefferson. Boys, I'm confused.
Yeah, it's a really convoluted subject, but I think it's really important, especially considering all of the craziness that's going on in California. I think more than ever, we need the state of Jefferson.
Okay. So just, unless somebody else got another question, because I want a clarifying question on this. Brett, help me out. You may have one or two better than mine.
I mean, wouldn't the entire idea underlying the state of Jefferson in this particular case be the fact that an area which is predominantly conservative would wish to break away from an area that is predominantly liberal?
It's pretty much it, yeah.
Yes, but that would basically mean that it would be for political convenience's sake, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't think it's so much that it's a political thing, more than that certain areas are underrepresented specifically because they've been dominated due to their high populated areas. I mean, there is an inherent political association, but I think it's more based on the lack of representation more than it is specifically, disliking liberals.
Well, can I ask a quick question?
Please, go ahead.
Instead of trying to form a new state with Jefferson, as you quite rightly said, wouldn't it be a better idea to try and have devolutionized provinces? So the provinces that you have in your area, like the bigger cities or the bigger towns in your area in themselves, have sort of like an electoral college type of thing, where instead of it being the majority of the county itself, it would have the majority of different perspective people and towns. Wouldn't that be something better to push for, rather than trying to separate the actual county itself and try and merge with another one?
It's an idea. I do think the better idea would be for a 51st state. Maybe it's just because I've been kind of fixating on that for like 3 years, so I'm like, no, this is what I want. But at the same time, if California does secede, I wonder if all of the different counties won't become independent provinces, which will eventually lead to them being more independent. So there's an idea.
No, that's fair enough. Before everybody else wants to continue, shall we leave that to the end of the show? Because obviously it sounds like we're going to carry on from Cali X and carry on with a lot more questioning on that one. Shall we leave that one to the end and move on?
I've got one more small thing, if I may, and it's only for him for a Wild Smile to think about it. It doesn't have to be commented on. Very, very small. I just and I'll get to this, Binary Surfer. Thank you so much. I'll get to this. We'll get to this, Britisher. We got to pay attention to this. I really appreciate the donations. I will give a disclaimer at the end that will allow this to flow more naturally. And as soon as I get a chance, I will read your comment. So that said, are you aware that there's been a struggle going on since the early 60s in Michigan with the Upper Peninsula wanting to become the 51st state of Superior? Are you aware of that at all?
I've never even heard of it.
What I would just ask you to do, sir, is look into that, Wild Smile, because I'm going to almost christen you the American Oozaloo, but you got a lot to live up to even be considered that, and I'm considering that now. So you're intelligent. So look into that and consider what it may do when you start talking about division, like Calax and stuff. So yes, I know that Common Senseguy. But before we carry on, Common Senseguy, thank you so much. How do you get these people to come on our show? We get some pretty good folks too, Wild Smile. We really do. We've had a lot of people. I'm not going to go into the long list of names, and the Britisher, not least of which. He's always here. But man, it's I really appreciate this. So carry on, and let's see if we can get something else interesting on the table.
Yeah, I got.
Unless Brett or anybody else, because I had my last say. So if anybody else got something else, of course I wouldn't cut them off either.
All right. Yeah, I actually checked out Superior. I got it up on. I'll read up on it when we're done here.
No problem. Well, I suppose let's go on to I say a slightly lighter topic. It's not particularly a lighter topic, but I believe it's actually what they are called. They're not actually transsexuals. They're actually drag queens. They're actually story time in the public libraries in California now. Please explain, because I have no idea what's going on there.
Well, I don't know very many people that go to public libraries, mostly because the internet, most people have the internet. Like, as far as all of the poor people I've ever met, they all have internet. But I don't even know how to defend this, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to play it straight. This isn't a drag queen. You're cosplaying as a demon or something. I don't know who this... What is wrong with our world these days? I don't mean to like just take the old like stodgy old man. Oh man, the world ain't what it used to be. But this is downright frightening. This scares children. I don't know, man.
Well, that's the reason why.
That's coming from you. How old are you, Smile?
28.
Yeah, and so when I hear that, and your voice sounds even younger,
Yeah.
look, man, we got to realize that we have a lot of hope. We can't dwell on that side of like, what's the world coming to? I could say that easily. I think the Brit is a senior here. Common Sense is somewhere in between, and you are the junior here. But we can look at this, and we can choose to see that. That just hit me. Because look, man, that's all I could think about for about the last, I don't know, man, for a year. And then about 4 or 5 months ago, Britt and I were talking, Conscious Caracal and I were talking, some other folks too, and not least of which would be Common Senseguy. And you know what? There is a hope for the future. We got to hold on to that as we look at what the hell's the world coming to, because it does seem to be a lot of madness. But I'm glad to be living in this time.
Oh, absolutely. I say it jokingly. 2017's been the best year I've ever seen. And the future is so damn bright. We're going to need shaders. But have you seen the video of the kids like building a big paper wall in front of their teacher's door? And they were like, oh my God, these kids are being racist. But they were doing it. They were being trolls. They're being kids. That's what kids do. They just try to find ways to piss you off. And so this woman's like very angry about the students that are in her classroom that had left for the summer, and they put up Donald Trump stuff all around the room, and so she's just like trying not to like curse at them or curse about them rather, because they're gone, and it's like an Instagram post. And then she's like, well, check out here's what they made the other teacher, and it's a big paper wall.
The Mexican teacher, I see, that's so funny.
It's so good. Oh my God, I'm so glad kids.
Well, and they had the paper thing. They had the drawing of the black lady with the big gap.
Yeah,
like, they think I don't like about my gappy teeth, but I don't mind. You could tell that those kids triggered her.
Yeah, dude. Like, that's the thing, is kids that's what essentially trolls are. They're kids. It's what, and
they got insight, brother. They got insight. They see through your bullshit into what you really are. Kids and trolls, I would say, alike, real trolls. And sometimes that can be a blessing, but sometimes it's like, it's funny.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, there's a question in there then. If, as we quite rightly would say, that kids are quite insightful and are quite observant to the world, why are parents forcing them to go and sit down with drag queens and people that look like demons to read stories in public libraries?
Oh, man, what a good segue, too. And a good question. I'm going to leave that to Wild Smile and Britisher. I want to hear what these two polar opposites think.
All right, I'll go.
Okay. I think it's
Go ahead.
I think it's basically virtue signaling by the parents. They wish to demonstrate how terribly open-minded they are, that they are willing to expose their children to this.
Exactly. And here's the irony. And I'm sure you all were kids once, and you remember what happened when your parents tried to be hip with the times and push things on you.
No, I can assure you I was never a kid.
Yeah, the British is a robot. He's from the CIA. No, sorry, the MI6.
He was born full grown and speaking Latin, son. Sorry, but he's not alive. He's an MI6 robot. We'll tell you about that in the after chat.
Very good. So yeah, it is virtue signaling, but it's doing the opposite effect, right? So they're pushing all this stuff on kids. They're just going to become more resistant of that. Sort of like my younger brother and I, we really didn't have a meaningful relationship when we were growing up, because our dad was like, you guys got to hang out all the time. When we got older and we hung out with her, I'm like, shit, this guy's a lot like me. He's a little bit younger. He's funny, charming. You know what I mean? Like I need to personally, and this is beyond personal relationships, but with everything, I need to enjoy it for myself in order to like it. If somebody shoves it down my throat, I'm going to be more resistant to it. I mean, that happened with a show called One Punch Man. I love One Punch Man, but my best friend, he was like, he lived, drank, ate, slept One Punch Man. And I was like, this is all I talked about it all the time. So I'm like, I don't want to watch this show. I don't want to watch the show. So finally, when I did, I was blown away. I'm like, man, I actually like this. But I had so much resistance to it because there was so much external pressure. And that external pressure creates that resistance in, I think, most people.
Good old Mr. Saitama.
If I may, I think what we're looking at really is a kind of something that opens up regarding what could be called social convention. That basically what we're getting from the social justice crowd again and again and again is the attempt to kind of treat as completely normal things which are not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
So as such, there are societal conventions, things we do in public and things we do in private. And it may be wrong to prevent people from doing things completely. That basically they can't do them in private, they can't do them in any way because we've banned it and we've made it illegal. That in itself is wrong. And to a certain extent, society has come around to realizing that. But the social justice crowd is effectively swinging to the other extreme, saying, if it is to be accepted, then it must be accepted completely. It is not just something people do in their own private lives. It now must be out in the open and it must be acceptable to everybody. And that's, in a way, to use an example ad absurdum, it is basically, rather than just having sex in your living, in your bedroom, you're having sex in the open street.
Mm-hmm.
Because it should be perfectly permissible. And that's where the difference between the public and the private lies. And I think when it comes to these drag queens and whatever, that's where they're trying to foist upon us an understanding that this is now completely in the public space, this is utterly acceptable, society has said so. And the simple truth is, society hasn't. It feels desperately uncomfortable with this, and it would just like it to go away.
It's funny you say that.
I can just quick. Oh, go ahead, Common Sense. Go ahead. You haven't said much.
That's fun. I was going to say it's funny because there's a gender. Well, actually, I'm not going to assume their gender, but there is a commenter in the commenter section that's called JJ So The Rock, who put half the kids that are made to sit on Santa's lap scream and cry. A drag queen cause mental issues. I think that's quite a comparable, isn't it? If you think about how different people from different faiths, though we've accepted it, it's still a weird concept, isn't it? Taking your kids to sit on a full-grown man's lap to talk about something that's not necessarily going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think they're both freaking weird. I really do. I think they're both strange. I kind of, and you started with agenda and you shied away from it, but I don't think that Wild Smile will. I mean, and you know what, Wild Smile, you're young and whatnot, so you may go a little bit, you may be able to express yourself more freely than us old folks do. So I wonder if you have an opinion, what kind of, I mean, what would the agenda, why would somebody promote this? Why would someone, do you have children? I'll ask you very quickly.
No, I don't.
No, but even you can say that, okay, but it seems a little strange. So why would someone promote this kind of agenda targeted at young people? If you care to tell us your opinion.
Oh, yeah. I have an idea that it's a mix between virtue signaling and like the intimidation of the social justice culture. Because it's all a race to see who's more tolerant. And when somebody ups their game and becomes more tolerant, you have to up your game and match it or do more. So when somebody comes up with an idea like this, not a single one of the social justice tards can go, hey, that's a bad idea. This harms children. This confuses children. Why can't you just allow children to enjoy their childhood? I mean, you're robbing these kids of their innocence in a lot of ways. I know it seems like a bit of a stretch, but the big picture really does show that. And it's a bunch of these small incidents like this where people are too afraid to go, hey, look, I believe everyone should be who they want to be all the time. What I don't believe is that we should push normalcy to such an extent that it destroys what is normal, right? So
because what other instance would we interject sex at this young age, gentlemen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why
why
would
swish? Because this person's like, the hips on the drag queen goes swish, swish, swish. So just take that out and say the hips on the woman goes. You don't say that with this age group kids. They don't need to make the cognitive connection of swish, 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 and hips and all, right? That, I believe that's what you're saying. It's a little young for that, no matter what.
Absolutely. Even if you do support, hey, if I have a trans son or daughter, whatever, even if you believe that, this is still pushing it on them at a really young age, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy at all. To create identity crisis within youth is, I don't see any positive effect coming out of that. And this isn't even the worst offender. I'm not sure if you guys remember Teen Vogue about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. They had an article, and it was directed at teenagers, right? Like preteens, 12 to 13-year-olds, instructing them on the benefits of anal sex and how to practice safe sex. What they conveniently left out in the article was
hang on, back up. What age group? I'm sorry, sir, and continue. But what age group?
Preteens and young teenagers.
Yeah, tweens they're called.
Yeah, tweens. According to their Wikipedia page, that's who they're directed towards. But yeah, it's a guide to anal sex is what the video or what the article was called, and they conveniently leave out all of the bad health ramifications, like the fact that a lot of old gay men who have been gay their whole lives have problems holding in their bowels. And that's just one of many problems. They're more prone to STIs. There is a long list of problems with anal sex. It's not something you should encourage somebody to do as an alternative to regular sex. Like, at least
it's unhealthy. That is scientific. No matter how much people will hate anybody for saying that, all you have to do is look into it. It also can cause heart attack. It's a not very healthy thing to do.
No, not at all. But people are afraid to condemn it because, God forbid, they be labeled as one of the hateful bigots.
Well, then we shouldn't condemn cigarettes. I love a good fucking you know what I like? I like a good fucking Marlboro and a really good Glenmorangie. You know, neat, no ice, just right out of the bottle, straight from Scotland. In fact, the only time I've ever had it came straight from TheBritisher. One of my last bottles of whiskey. I love that. So why not? You know, it's just.
I think we've kind of glossed over what the major point was here. I think we've actually glossed over the actual proper main point here. I don't think either of us have even pointed any of this out at all. Why are we talking about the ramifications of having anal sex or anything else like that? The article was targeted to kids.
Yeah.
Even know exactly what the kids are. They shouldn't even know what sex is at that point. Let alone instead of having proper vaginal sex or whatever sex that they want to have.
Right. Well, my point was that not only should we not have been talking about it at all, but that the fact that they were encouraging it on children is just even worse.
Well, I'd go a step further. So I don't mean to cut you off, but sorry, I'll just say this quickly, and then please carry on. I don't mean to completely disagree with you on this fact. It's just, if you're a tween between the ages of 11 and 13, having anal sex is not the most important thing, and people that are targeting them people to tell them to have anal sex are nothing better than pedophiles, I'm sorry to say. Because if you're telling kids to do that, you have to think about that yourself to go, well, what's better than having sex? Oh, anal sex is better than that. Do that instead. I'm sorry, I just can't get past that point.
Well, I like the idea that you just described there, Whitesmile, of competitive tolerance. And it reminds me in a way with what we have seen happen in the Middle East. I know this is a large jump, but what we saw in the Middle East over the last 30 years or so was competitive religiosity.
Right.
That basically led to the Middle East turning into what it did effectively. each person tried to be more religious than the next. Each government tried to be more religious than their neighbors. You know, in that regard, it became a death spiral. And what we're seeing here is precisely, you know, is in a way precisely the inverse of that. We're seeing competitive tolerance. And we may end up in the same place, just via a different route, by basically everybody trying to outdo each other in a sort of, I mean, wasn't it... You know, I mean, we've got sort of the you know, offense Olympiad and all sorts of things going on within our society,
don't we?
Where you can see that there are effectively competitive pressures on Western society of people, you know, within the media, but generally also within society itself, to outdo each other as to, you know, who can be more offended, but also who can be more tolerant, who can virtue signal the greatest. To the point where you sort of think, well, there will eventually be a collective, you know, there will be a collective result of all this. You know, when all individuals engage in this, as such, the society does move one way.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think in the end, we're not heading toward a good place. And I think once we have got drag queens lecturing people, lecturing children, and once we've got others, as you say, lecturing children on anal sex and the benefits of such, you do realize that we're heading to a very dark place very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay. I'm calm now. I'm calm now. Well,
I just want to say, I actually I invited Welshmere Stories. The only reason I'm saying this is because he's such a cool guy. I'm going to say this, Brett. I don't think he'd be offended. I just sent him a little thing, person to person. It was like, you know, I don't want to offend anybody else, so maybe this is tech with him. We're talking about this stuff, and if people are offended, it's just the way it is. But we all three know here that Welshmere is such a great guy. He's not obtrusive. He would only bring some of it. So I was like, hey, man, if you want to let me know, only you. That's why I'm telling you this way. And then his answer back, check this out. I mean, I'm just saying this. This is just concreted in here. I want it to be. I want everyone to know what kind of guy this person is. If you ever find yourself in a discussion with this gentleman, no, he's a gentleman. He says, "Thank you very much. In my opinion, 4 is enough. It's interesting to listen and get diverse opinions." So anyway, that was it. That was all the time I'm going to suck up all the for that. But Welshmere, you're a hell of a guy, and I appreciate it because no, in truth. We look what I just did. I just ruined a bunch of time, and this guy's interesting. So is there something else? Do we have something else on this topic? Can we move on to something new and exciting? Is there something you want to jump to, Wild Smile?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else more to say on the subject. I mean, I like you were saying, I don't think we're heading into a into a good place if this continues to go on, but there does seem to be a significant backlash every time something like this does happen. Like I remember seeing this drag queen, not trending on Twitter, ironically enough, but it was being shared around quite a bit. People are like, "Oh my God, we keep going further and further and further." So I think there will be eventually a pushback.
You see, that's where I draw a distinction, and that is that the backlash you speak of happens in the virtual world. But the drag queen speaking to the kids happens in the real world.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to the outcomes we are seeing, they're happening in the real world and they're going in that direction. And all the noise and hot air that, to a certain extent, all of us here are generating is in the virtual world. And I wonder to what extent we're actually affecting the real world. I'm sorry to sound grim here. I'm sounding terribly depressing.
No, it's true.
No,
I apologize.
There's a level of truth to that. At the same time, there does seem to be a quite an amount of influence coming from the internet into reality. Without getting into the whole meme magic thing, a good example would be Eric Clanton, right? I'm sure you guys have heard about the Antifa guy that smashed the dude over the head with the bike lock. That got zero mainstream attention. No one talked about.
You know what? They didn't even give
Somehow-
credit to the autistics on 4chan, man. I won't blither on about it, but you know what I mean? They found the freaking guy, man. That was amazing.
It was. I've never been so goddamn impressed in my life.
Oh no, there was definitely something more impressive when a certain flagpole.
Thank you, Brett.
Okay, yeah, you got me.
flagpole.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut off his idea, but yeah, Brett, you read my mind because that was
Yeah,
amazing.
I forgot about. How could I forget about "He Will Not Divide Us"? You guys saw that?
Come on, Smile. We got to milk you for all your worth. So you were saying before I rudely cut you off?
Oh no, it's no problem. And by the way, I apologize for cutting some of you guys off earlier. I realized they did it afterwards. But anyway, yeah, with the Eric Clanton thing, that got zero media attention, and yet somehow it caused enough of a stir to where the police actually got rustled a little bit and went and checked it out, and they found their own evidence. So one of the arguments being made was that, oh, well, all of the evidence we gave them isn't, or not, what that poll gave them was going to be inadmissible. At the same time, they actually went to his house and they found their own evidence that was able to actually get him with charges to press on him. So I agree that, yeah, there is a significant disconnect between the digital world and the real world, but especially over the past few years, there seems to be more influence from the digital world that does seem to change and shape the world we live in, however significant it might be.
Well, no, I have to say I do agree with that. To the point of, though some of us might only have 100 subscribers, some of us might have 1,000, some of us might have 30,000, some of us might have over 700,000.
Nope.
It doesn't matter.
All of them.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what the size of your audience is. All of our audiences, or all of collective people's thinking, normally go from one channel to the other, to the other, to the other. So whatever sort of point that you have will wash down the stream, so to speak. It will get pushed out towards the sea. Because eventually, people from your channel are going to watch my stuff. My stuff's going to be watching British stuff, vice versa, so on and so forth. And that's how you make changes. Though it's small, there's like a ripple in a river. Once you throw a stone in, in a pond, once you throw a stone in, that makes a little ripple, and eventually it will rocket all the way to each side. So eventually it will go across. And that's what you got to do. Slow and steady wins the race. It's not always about being fast and brash.
I feel like you were sucking my brain force out, because I was going to mention exactly what you said with the ripple, but I was going to reference a certain martial artist that said, you drop pebble in pond, ripple looks small, go out, and man, that was beautiful. I shouldn't even have said a damn word. That was lovely. Oh, good gracious, boys! Y'all know where we're at. We're still right here on the drag queen. I think we're still on that thing.
Yeah, we're going to move into Hollywood now. We're going to move into Hollywood and Weinstein. And what do you think about that as you're in California?
Yeah, but hey, hang on a second. Go ahead, and if you can read the heading on the show map there, sir, for this article, I would appreciate it. I took some time to think about it.
Is that a Weinstein in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Go.
Good stuff, man. So yeah, Harvey Weinstein.
Too soon.
I've heard rumors about Harvey Weinstein for years, but and maybe it's because I would admit to being the type of person that entertains conspiracy theories. I don't always buy into them, but I'll definitely consider them and reflect upon them. I've assumed that Hollywood was a cesspool of perverts of the worst kind for years. And boy, have I just been looking at people with that smug "I told you so" face all damn month. And now we got Kevin Spacey. That story is just too good. A man who is accused of molesting a child, and he's like, well, I was too blacked out to remember, I was drunk, but also I'm gay. Which kind of makes you go, well, that makes it more plausible that you did this, on top of the fact that you're just like, oh, I'm blackout drunk. Didn't care to mention why there was a 14-year-old kid in your house at past midnight while everyone was getting drunk, and then you sent everyone home. I don't know. The whole thing's, but I don't want to deviate from Harvey Weinstein too much.
No, that's on topic. Carry on. Just go on.
So Harvey Weinstein, the whole idea with the casting couch is that there are certain certain places in the world where people who are in positions of power are able to do whatever they want with the threat of looming a career over them. There isn't any sort of watchdog. There's no way for people to keep them in check. There's no sort of, you know, like how government, at least in America, we have the 3 different branches of government. So that way, not one branch of government has more authority over the other. That way it seems more fair. Hollywood doesn't have anything like that. They just have someone like Harvey Weinstein and presumably many, many others that have been getting away with this. And I think he's been thrown under the bus in order to save their own asses, to keep him under the limelight. Unfortunately, it seems to be that he's dragging people into the light with him.
Well, I'll say this: even Seth MacFarlane, with his jokes about, well, hey, congratulations for your, you know, Oscar. Now you don't have to pretend to be attracted to Harvey Weinstein anymore. You know, look, I'm just going to be blunt. Britisher, I'm going to be blunt. If you were willing years ago to fillet old split. I'm trying to be gentle because I just did a thing yesterday, Britisher, about Bill Hicks was right. He was correct. And I'm not going to go there now. I'm going to try to keep it at least PG-13. So let me just put it this way. If you were willing to look at Harvey Weinstein and say, you know what, he don't look that bad. And yeah, maybe they have a little something if he did reach out and grab some girls, like the lady from that, the audio that came out. Even from that, I listened to it carefully. He even said I was used to it. I wonder if it was like a, ooh, look at your titties, or if it was like a, I have no idea. So that isn't even damning to me. Let me make my point, because I'm stuttering and jumping because the SDW bullets are flying everywhere, and it's gotten into my head like 1984 style, like the rats. I don't want the fucking rats. So I'm just ready to so let me just be clear and say I don't buy it. Regretful sex is not rape. It's not rape. And
yeah, fair enough.
And I'll cut all y'all loose. One more thing. And Harvey Weinstein, you got to be kidding me. You can't. These girls basically are admitting to being prostitutes. I'm done.
Yes. And they didn't have a problem with being prostitutes until they felt that they were in a position that they could use their victimhood status to give them some credibility.
I've only got one thing on this. We're all adults, and as I've said many times before, and I used the pun intentionally, or should I say intentionally, when you want to get a leg over in the industry, so to speak, you get your leg over. That's as simple as that, and I don't need to explain that anymore for anybody else. But my main problem with that is, if it was rape and people knew that this was rape, and people like George Clooney and things like that, where everybody's coming out going, oh yeah, we all knew, then why the hell didn't you say something? If you knew and you weren't having it done to you, why didn't you come out and say something? If this was honestly going on, why didn't nobody else come out and say something?
There's an intimidation.
Being a man.
There's a big one. Like there was one person.
Well, when you're as big as George Clooney.
Oh yeah.
Or
George Clooney would still get work, right? But there was one person that came out and said that they had warned their friend that, hey, don't go to bed, don't go out with Harvey Weinstein. Dude's a creep.
I just read that. Who was that? It was somebody famous too. I just read that.
He got blacklisted after this. He got a phone call from Harvey Weinstein the next day saying he'll never work in this town again, and that's because the woman who had already been sleeping with Weinstein went and told him. And I agree, regretful sex isn't rape. I think it's a unique situation where they're putting it up. Like what would happen was he would invite women over to come to like a dinner with a bunch of other people so they wouldn't be spooked. As soon as she would arrive, within 5 minutes, everyone would get up and leave and she'd be stuck with him. So there were it's not rape, but he's definitely a fucking creep. Like there was one woman who he like cornered into a corner and then she wouldn't fuck him. So he jerked off into a potted plant in front of her and made her watch.
That is being alleged, by the way. That is alleged.
Alleged.
Yeah,
I thought it came from a person's perspective.
Thank you,
I called it.
I was muted, but Britisher beat me to it. That's alleged. Britisher, you're not saying much about this. You've been very silent for a long time.
I mean, as such, we've Harvey Weinstein. We've heard quite a bit over recent weeks about Harvey Weinstein, to the point where to the point where you just want to, you know, drown yourself in a vat of lard by now. As such, I would say all this talk of, you know, oh, we need to clean up Hollywood, it cannot be done.
Yeah, because somebody else will just take their place. This is the result of human nature.
But again, yes, as I say, it must be pointed out that it is not the Harvey Weinsteins. The dynamic is actually from the other side. Because, you know, what the Harvey Weinsteins are effectively looking for is sex. But what the person at the other end is looking for is a career and possibly millions of dollars. So as such, the pressure to offer this is always going to be there. So effectively, you know, unless you pretty much have a policeman or a CCTV camera at every meeting at which a film producer ever meets an actor or an actress, you will never be able to do away with this. So
that's the whole thing.
In that regard, it becomes quite tiresome. But where I think the Weinstein scandal is of interest is of what it has sparked off. Because it's now everywhere. Everybody is trying to use Weinstein momentum. I mean, here in Britain, a cabinet minister has just resigned because we're having all sorts of talk going about, you know, this person touched that person's knee in 1974. You know, one is basically using the momentum that this has caused to try and kind of lever open jars, you know, that just perhaps just best be left alone. And in that regard, I think this kind of momentum will bring about a huge amount of changes, which will not necessarily be to the good. I know I'm sounding terribly grim. Perhaps that's why I'm rather quiet in these stories at the moment.
Well, hey, with Wild Smile, bro, what I do is I commit myself. I watch a bunch of the guest stuff that day. I've watched about 4 hours of your stuff today. It's not that grim topics, but there are grim topics. I don't know how I just said not, but I just contradicted myself. What I'm saying is a lot of the things that we're covering tonight are grim, bro. You have to take a grim stance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just feel that I'm not so much worried about the Weinstein story anymore. I'm more worried about what the Weinstein story is leading to.
I said the bandwagon effect. And very quickly, before I cut you loose, Wild Smile, because we definitely want to hear what you think on this. In the chat, they're saying they're talking behind our backs about this whole Corey Feldman thing. Give me 10 million. Let me get thing, and I'll do this, and I'll tell you that. And, you know, is this another effect? Is what the gist of what I'm getting from the chat is. They're feeling like Corey Feldman now is saying, "Yeah, I've been holding this for years, but now if I can get paid, I'll do it." So is this another effect of that bandwagon syndrome, where you don't only have people coming forward to, you know, all this stuff, like you said, now members of parliament now touch somebody's knee, and now we have, you know, is this another thing? And so go ahead, Wild Smile, whatever you want to talk about on this.
Absolutely. Well, here's the first effect, and this is what. Ah, man, I'm so sorry. I'm spacing your name right now. A Britisher? Is that it?
Yep, that's me. Yep.
Oh, dude, I have seen your videos before. Oh yeah, so yeah, this is leading to essentially a witch hunt. Like how I mentioned earlier, we were talking about competitive tolerance or whatever. It's sort of the same thing here. These people are now competitively trying to show off who has been the most raped by Harvey Weinstein, and so everyone's trying to up their game, and now it's permeating through everything. It's now just a witch hunt to find anybody that might have said anything gross, had done anything gross. I remember even people had some interview with Ben Affleck on some, you know, had some interview. The girl who was interviewing him, he demanded that she sit on his lap. Like, there are a lot of situations where you're like, well, I'm not sure this is rape. I'm not sure this is sexual assault. So I'm kind of scatterbrained. I apologize. But what I'm getting at is you were seeing the litmus test, right? So anybody who was saying a month ago, we shouldn't listen and believe because people can lie. And then now are they're the first ones going, oh my God, look at this Hollywood fucking leftist creep who wants to take down the NRA. Fuck him. He's a rapist. Now, as with sort of like with what's his name, Bill Cosby, when it reaches like 5 accusers, you're like, okay, this is starting to pick up traction. This seems real. It hits 10. You go, okay, this seems very real. When it hits like 60 to 70 people, you go, wait a minute. This is starting to sound like a witch pursuit thingy. But that's just my 2 cents. As far as the effects over time, yeah, I seriously think that that's what we're going to be facing, or the effects of everyone trying to up their game in regards to, oh my God, this happened to me. And I do worry that people who are innocent are going to get caught in the crossfire simply because somebody's going to see an opportunity to become famous for 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, my point kind of echoes Britishers. And to yours in some respect, to the point of, I'm not too bothered what happens with the situation that's going on with Weinstein. Not because I don't feel sorry for the people that actually had it happen. I do feel sorry for them. But at the same time, most of them, I'm not going to say all of them, and I'm not going to say none of them, but most of them would have been adults, or at least consenting adults at the time. So if it was rape, phone the police and let them investigate it. Don't just go to the media.
Exactly.
But as I said before, it's a case of, and as British just said, and as you said before, it's a case of now everybody is jumping on a bandwagon. It's the same thing as what happened with Jimmy Savile and Rolf Harris in our countries and things like that, where everybody was just jumping on a bandwagon to go, yeah, he touched me, he did this, Jim fixed me, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, bad joke.
Jim will forget.
But that's the whole point. Everybody's now jumping on these bandwagons to go, oh no, he did this, she did that, that did this to me, that dog raped me yesterday. It's just, I don't understand where this is all coming from. Okay, fair enough, you could say, oh yeah, but this gave me courage to come forward. You should have courage to come forward anyway. You should do. If it only took somebody to say, oh, somebody raped me before, then surely if you were, you would go to a meeting. Now, obviously, I'm projecting a lot because there's nothing to. I haven't been in that situation. I wouldn't be able to say what I would and wouldn't do in that situation. But surely, from my own head, if I was and I wasn't ready to come out to say that I was, I would go to different meetings on different groups and I would sit in the background and listen to other people's stories and then feel, well, no, it's not something that happened just to me. It's happened to everybody else. And then I would get more stronger, so to speak. But I wouldn't wait for a celebrity to come out and go, oh, yeah, I think that this happened 10 years ago, so I'm going to come out and say it now.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe I'm conflating the two stories. I mean, maybe it's too much of a difference.
Well, did you hear Yvette Cooper this evening on the news, Common Sense?
Not this evening, no. I have heard of the story, but I haven't heard of this evening.
Well, I mean, Yvette Cooper, you know, to give it in shorthand to the Americans, Yvette Cooper is to us in the British Parliament what Hillary Clinton is to US politics.
Oh, Lord.
She really is, you know, a very, very powerful figure who has got, you know, enormous connections in the political establishment, and she is on the political left. So she is pretty much a carbon copy in that regard. And she immediately seized the opportunity to be on, you know, on the BBC today to wax lyrical about how this whole saga, the Weinstein saga, the supposed scandals in inverted commas that we're seeing come out now regarding Parliament about who touched whose knee. This was all a sign of a terrible malaise, and that what needed to change was the culture. And then she goes on about, you know, old men feeling entitled to touch young women and so on. And you just sort of feel, well, you're being fed a very hardline feminist narrative by what seems to be a mainstream politician who seems to be demanding changes across the board. So not just in industry, not in, you know, the film industry in particular, not in Parliament, no, the culture. So basically everything, everywhere, you know, at all times. That's what kind of worries me. That, you know, this bandwagon may roll completely out of control and they may hijack the whole story and drive it over a cliff in order to get their aims, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, there's
this
plenty of
has
reason
such
to think
momentum at the moment in the media that I cannot see the prominent figure to stand up and say enough. Do you understand what I mean? Who is actually going to pull the brake on this thing?
I do understand exactly what you're saying. I thought that when Dominic Green was accused of, I'm not saying he didn't, but when he was accused of touching a girl's leg faintly, which is actually put into the story, the word faintly, touched her knee faintly or touched her leg faintly, and you just look at that and think, come on, Dominic Green, you're supposed to be a politician. You can pick up on the words and languages. I touched her leg faintly. What does that mean? That's not sexual contact.
He's supposed to have sent her a flirtatious text.
Well, I didn't hear that bit. But the bit on the knee, though, that's the bit I'm focusing on.
Yeah, but those are the two sins. He's supposed to have sent her a flirtatious, so not explicit, not in any way, just a flirtatious text. And he's supposed to have touched her knee faintly. And you think, I'm sorry, but this really has all hallmarks of a kind of Salem witch trial scenario that is running rapidly out of control.
Exactly. And before we go completely out of control, before we move on to the Cali X bit as well, I've got one more question myself for Wild Smile. What the hell is NBC doing with saying that the alt-right has come from gaming?
Oh, they're just being fucking fake news, I guess. That's the sad part is they've been doing good this year. Like I haven't had to do too many videos about NBC being too retarded besides the Kekistan flag being a symbol for white nationalism. Oh, I guess all Mel Brooks movies are all Nazi imagery. Anyway, it's a parody, you fucking idiots. Anyway, yeah, NBC either didn't do their research or they actually believe the shit that they're saying. And if they believe it, they shouldn't be reporting the news. The alt-right is a result of all of the political correct stuff. Like for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that applies to social movements as well. You have Black Lives Matter. That, you know, at first everyone, they heard Black Lives Matter, like, oh man, I feel bad. These people feel like their lives don't matter. That's sad. And then after 4 years of being told that, you know, white people are like demons and shit, you're like, okay, now I don't feel bad for them anymore. And then you see the people with Charlottesville, people saying, you will not replace us. And I'm like, man, this is a familiar feeling. These people, it's sad. They feel like they're going to be replaced. That's kind of sad that they feel that way. And to me, that's what they are. They're the same movement. Just the alt-right is a reaction from not just Black Lives Matter, but all of the politically correct intimidation that has been going on, not just in society, but everywhere. You see it on TV. You go to school, you see it, and it's pushed all around you. I mean, hell, the only place I don't see political correct BS is at work, oddly enough.
Well,
do you mind telling us what you do for a living? I mean, we don't want to know where you work, but what do you do?
Yeah, I'm a waiter.
Oh, okay. So you don't see that shit, but that's cool.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong servant, man.
No, that's good. I mean, so that's actually a good profession if you're good at it, man.
It's not bad. No, if you're really good at it, you can make some good money. That was actually why I stopped going to college. I was going to get a doctorate in psychology, and I stopped. I wasn't as interested in it after 4 years of it, and I realized the average pay for a is not a whole lot more than what you make as a good waiter.
So you have a bachelor's in psych?
I almost did. I have I think 2 general ed classes, and I'll get my general ed certification as well as the whatever it is. It's the minor.
I got one question for you. I got one question for you. Benjamin Rush or William Wendt?
Oh man, Those names both ring a bell.
Oh, forget it. It's just like an inside joke for people. Because Benjamin, I'll tell you later. It was supposed to be funny. You were supposed to be like, ha, because you're American. I guess the technical funny answer would have been, well, of course, Benjamin Rush. Just act like nothing happened. That was so dumb. That was as nerd. That was a psychological
that was
nerd.
Cringy as hell.
No worries, man. I am just as bad as anybody else in the cringe department.
Makes me think of the Moldy Peaches. Up, down, left, right, left. A, B, start. Just because we use cheats don't mean we're not smart. You know, anyway.
I used to use that cheat all the time on good old Sonic.
All right. Well, now we really need to carry on. We're going to start. Now, before you know it, the British and I will be talking about Rome Total War. And then it's over. It's just all over. Too much.
Yeah, we'll give that one a miss. We'll give that one a miss. No, I just found that video was quite interesting that you did. And to the point that now NBC are actually coming out to say that they're blaming Gamergate for the alt-right in general. Not the fact is what you said and what we all believe, that the opposite ends of the political ideologies need each other to technically balance each other out and actually to form and destruct each other in general. But NBC is saying that it's Gamergate. And I just couldn't believe that when that happened, when you pointed that out.
No, I think it's been up for a few days too. And a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've seen other people cover it as well. And still, like, I waited a few days. I'm like, okay, let's see if this is really as bad as everyone's saying it was. And I watched it. This is like, oh my God, this is so poorly researched.
Mm-hmm. Well, I suppose we better move on to carry on.
No, when it comes to that story, what struck me was that it seems to be as if it's kind of nirvana for the media there, because of course it allowed them to kind of bring in the alt-right. It allowed them to bring in the idea of online radicalization, which to me is yet another such myth. But it also allowed them to bring in computer games. And anybody who's been around long enough will remember, hundreds of articles over the years, how computer games corrupt us all.
Yep.
So I think they saw this as kind of, the perfect hook on which to hang all of this, so that you could pretty much bring in several tangents together. And you would have that many different camps agree with you, because all of them arrive from the same from different camps, but on the same censorious angle, that eventually they couldn't go wrong. And my guess is that an article like that will more than likely find quite a following, simply because it ticks that many different boxes. And common sense, and this not being the person, but the actual concept, kind of gets lost in this whole idea. Because yes, I'm not sure to what extent you get traction by trying to get at that, unless you have got a massive audience with which to counter. Sorry, I'm beginning to just talk nonsense. Please ignore me.
Oh, you're good. No, it's great. I hope you had something to say about that. But did you follow what he was saying there, Wild?
Not exactly, no.
Sometimes the British, if anything I like to say is he has one flaw. I have flaws too. Sometimes he'll get lost in himself and he doesn't realize that the nomenclature he's using may not appeal to the youth of our generation. But Brett, I was following you.
Well, I completely not followed you, and I would like to say that the person also got lost in this complete argument and debacle of a news story as well. So you can use that as well, my friend. I did get lost in the news story.
Well, there's the thing that the Scientology, they say if you are reading a paragraph of somebody, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna laugh, or if somebody is saying something and you don't understand a word or two in the paragraph, that it may be like you don't understand any of it. And you know what, dude? You may have just woke up and I fucking care. I don't know. I just thought it was funny because Britt and I, and look, the reason why the common sense fits in so good is because we're fucking nerds. I'm sorry, Britt. Go ahead.
Has anybody ever seen the confrontation of that BBC reporter who did an who did an in-depth study of Scientology, and therefore, of course, came together with quite a lot of members of Scientology, and at one point he just flipped out and he just lost it. Have any of you?
Yeah, finally, because they were pressuring him, man. They were like that one guy that was always wearing the glasses, man, the really clean cut. His mom is some actress. They were pressuring the guy, and finally he snapped, Brett. He actually owned that, though.
He just started roaring at them. Yes.
But he owned that, man. He even said, he was like, yes. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, he really did a kind of expose on them. But they are extremely crafty in how they behave. And you could see that they were constantly needling this man.
Yes.
Trying to get him to explain even the obvious in conversations and whatever. Yeah. And yes, at some point he just flipped. And it's a remarkable piece of film footage to see. I mean, it must be on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And he is as composed as you are, Britisher. You have to admit, sir, that even after what they put him through, you may have freaking lost a little bit too. That they were ruthless on the guy, right in his face too. They called him a bigot. That's what finally got him. Was they said, I'll look that up while you continue to talk about it.
Sorry, yes, I seem to have maneuvered this into the weeds.
No, this is great. Did we lose our guest? It would be my only concern, because do you know the piece he's talking about, brother? It's a little bit old, but it's like, yeah, it's a really good expose. Or are we completely ruining it? Common Sense, probably taking it so far.
No, I'm gonna check it out after the stream's over. Actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, why didn't you have a look for it, Ogre? And what we'll do at this moment in time while you're having a look for it is we'll just ask Wild Smile if he wants to ask us any questions. As we always try to give to most of the guests, we give them a couple of questions as well to ask us if they have any.
Actually, I came to this a little empty-handed, so I don't really have any questions. I was joking. I have my YouTube subscription feed, and I sub to a guy, Penguin Z0. I'm not sure if you know Critical at all, but he does an official podcast. So I almost jokingly, they have an ongoing joke where every time they bring somebody on, they ask them to share one of their most embarrassing masturbatory practices. And so I was tempted, right, to go ahead and share that. But considering that I think they're a little bit more, let's just say, liberal with their sexuality, it's not as...
See, I don't even know what the question means.
I think the expression you were looking for is less cerebral.
Cerebral. Tell me about sometimes you. I'm just kidding. I'm not. I don't actually want to ask the question, but the joke was it was a very elegant way of saying, "Tell me about sometime when you got caught jerking off" or something like that.
You can ask. You can ask anything. I would ask the Britisher that question if I were you.
That would be quite funny. That would be something I would want to know myself.
No, don't ask me. I'm just, and that's inappropriate. Here's what I meant by that.
Official podcast is good stuff, but different audiences. I think
we try to be open-minded, but there's some things where I'm turning red. I mean, we're old, man. When we start thinking about
my generation's way more daring, where you just look you straight in the eye and go, "Oh yeah, you want to hear about this?"
Yeah.
Yep.
It's that skull and bones.
It's that competitive tolerance again.
Yeah, competitive tolerance.
It is too. It really is.
It's way more daring. It's that competitive tolerance again. There you go.
Yeah. Competitive degeneracy.
Well, you are kind of funny.
I definitely don't want to let Wild Smile off the hook. Are you aware of what we do in our wrap up here when it's coming? It's coming here eminently. I mean, we're not going to talk forever. We've been going for a while, and you've been here with us. I mean, it's not like we it's so tough for us because everybody wants to, people in the chat, they want the 4-hour long stream. What happened to when Ogre and British used to? Well, I mean, we did that for a while. A, it's not easy, and then B, people don't want to watch it after. That's a fact.
I can give you the actual reason why we don't do it for that length of time. My missus doesn't let me. That's the reason.
Yeah, I could say probably the same thing, but I'm gonna man up. But it is what it is. But at the end, we do a wrap up, and we usually ask the guest, and we all have a final word. So I don't want to let you off the hook as easy as it was on to ask us questions, because that's a spur of the moment thing. Hopefully you'll have a final word. Could be anything. I mean, I don't know how even close we are to that, boys. I already said, man, I've been doing my best, gentlemen. I hope nobody can tell that I'm completely off my game, but I'm only about, I don't know. I want to say 80, 90%, but it may not. Whatever it is, I'm there. Britt, I don't know this kid. What do you think about him? Honestly, he's all right. He's got a good head on his shoulders. I would say, if I can give you any advice, don't lean one way or the other too hard. There are some good ideas that come from both sides.
Yeah, I actually have a healthy palette of both liberals and conservatives that I watch on a regular basis, because I even do like some people on both fringe ends, but it's more for their charm than it is like Alex Jones. I love Alex Jones. I don't believe a damn thing he says, but man, does he believe it? You know, and it just makes it the funnest thing to watch. And then you have people like Jack Posobiec, right? I cannot stand him. I cannot stand Laura Loomer. I cannot stand Bakelite. All the big alt-right people, right? And then on the left, you know, like the Young Turks, I can't fucking stand them at all either. I do like Jimmy Dore, though. Jimmy Dore is a funny and smart individual.
The reason you can't stand her is because she's better than you.
Yeah, that's the one thing. She's so much better than me. I just can't handle it. God, I love to hate the Turks, though. It's like if they didn't exist, I would feel a little hollow on the inside.
It's funny that you said that, though, because I love Jimmy. I spit in your face Dore. I love him. He should break away from the Young Turks. Because he is that dude. And it's not because he's a Jew. Everybody would be like, knows me about, oh, you just like him because he's Jewish. No, you know what? Fuck you, man. I just think Jimmy Dore you just said it. He's funny. He's quick-witted. And he does do politics pretty good. And he is. It's good to hear that from you, Wild. Because, you know, when I start hearing about these breaking offs, and I'll save it for my final word. I'll tell you what I think of my final word. But anyway, it's good to know that young people think about what's going on around them, i.e. Britisher Scott Pressler. I don't know if you noticed, but the guy got himself in a Ukrainian paper. Oh, I'd have to go back and look it up. I will too. Brett, he did today. But, you know, sometimes the Brit and I have observed young people fall in a ditch on both sides of the road. And I'm sure the Common Sense, I'm not trying to, I keep saying that, but the Brit and I, we hung out for a long time. All I can say is there is that ditch. I can't drill that in enough. There is that ditch on both sides of the road. And if you go too far one way or the other, you're in a ditch. It's as simple as that.
I agree.
I'm going to find that too. I'm finding just to kind of probably goad the Brit. Did you see that, Britisher? You did not see Scott Pressler's little thing he got today? He did.
For one reason or another, I don't follow Scott Pressler too closely.
Well, here it is. Let me screen share this. And it's let me see here. It's from I can't even say it. It's Thank You, Norway's largest printed newspaper. And there it is, Aftenposten, for including me in the story. And I'm not going to read all this, but there it is. It says very quickly, Trump activist. And could we agree on that, Brett? Trump activist, Scott Pressler, followed by over 140,000 other users on Twitter, blah, 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 blah. But I had to send him a little thing.
It's funny how these soulless undead come in such greater numbers.
Oh, like, no, I don't even feel, I feel so dumb because I'm leaving the guest. The guest is out. And it's like, it's not like a bunch of inside jokes. This gentleman, I would say, with all respect to him, is an example of maybe going into the right ditch a little too much. Okay. Great guy, though. Great gentleman. Smart guy. Smart person.
Well, it's easy to fall into those ditches because when you see something happen, it's really difficult to not jump to what you assume is the truth versus what you read. You know that there's that old saying, or at least they said it a lot in the Sherlock Holmes books that I read a long time ago, that a person has a tendency to determine what the truth is and then find a way to get to that truth, as opposed to looking at the evidence and determining truth from there. A biased person will say,
bias.
Yeah, confirmation bias. Thank you. Yeah, so it's really easy to, and that happens a lot. Like there'll be a lot of times where I want to talk about something, but I'm like, I want to wait for it all to roll in. A great example. A lot of people talked about this, and I lost a decent amount of respect for some pretty decent people that were reporting, oh, there's this transgender man that raped this woman in this bathroom, or this little girl in a bathroom. Well, it turns out that, yeah, he was transgender, but they weren't at a bathroom somewhere else. It was at his own home. Like she went to his home. So like they were purposely skewing the story to make it about bathrooms.
They were family members, weren't they?
Sorry?
They were family members, weren't they?
I think so.
The family, friends, family members, they were all visiting over holidays.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sorry, we just like normally we on our channel we don't like construing any sort of facts, so we normally correct each other. So please carry on.
No. Yeah, I appreciate it actually, because like I said, I didn't cover the story specifically because I'm gonna wait for all the details to roll in. So I actually didn't even read on it, but I do remember seeing the backlash about a day following where everyone was like, "Hey, apparently this didn't happen as the way a lot of the right-wing pundits were saying it happened," and it was an embarrassing moment for a lot of people. And I'm really glad I decided to go, I'm going to wait on this one. And I ended up not even talking about it because it's like, well, this is just a case of everything getting skewed, by both sides, it seemed like. Specifically more on the right than on the left, though.
Yeah. No, should we take this time then, Lance, to talk about Cali X? Talk about Cali X. Let's not talk about Cali X. Let's talk about Cali Exit.
Yeah. As long as how much time we got with you, Wild Smile?
I should probably wrap it up here shortly, but I got a little bit more time.
Yeah, well, let's hammer this one out and we'll do our final word. That sounds great.
Sounds good.
So do you want to carry on from Jefferson, either Ogre or Britisher? Or Wild Smile?
I'll go ahead and let somebody else take it because I'm feeling kind of empty-headed at the moment. Wouldn't be the first.
I heard you, Brett. Go ahead.
There is not too much I can actually add from my perspective here because I really don't think I know too much about Californian designs on independence. I mean, if there is a if there is a vacancy for Nicola Sturgeon to lead California to independence, you can have her.
So yeah, I believe the idea and the argument for it, it's like at least threefold. The first one is, well, people don't like California anyway, so why do you care if we leave or not? The second one would be California is actually ahead of progress in regards to the rest of the nation, so it's only fair that we secede and become our own autonomous state. And then the third one being, well, we're a very, very wealthy area we can sustain for ourselves and do all of this thing. And they conveniently leave out the fact that there are more poor people in California than any other state, I believe. If I remember correctly, there is a diminishing middle class. And the person that I love watching Tucker Carlson tonight, he gets the craziest people to go on there and directly advocate, like, yeah, we want the middle class to leave. We want all the poor people. And he just said it like it was just nothing. So first of all, over my dead body, I will not lose my status as an American because for any reason. Second, we couldn't sustain on our own, I don't think. And even if we could, there is no way the federal government is going to allow it because what was it? Texas tried to do the same thing, right? And then why would a country allow one of its greatest assets to just, I'm just going to do whatever I want over here? And that's not the way it goes. So not only do I think, no, it won't happen, but I also hope to God that it doesn't happen because then it will give more authority to people like Jerry Brown and Nancy Pelosi, all these people from California that think that they speak for everyone in California when they speak for only their little echo chamber hug box that they talk to on a daily basis.
Well, that's fair enough. Well, I suppose I can try and conflate two different points. What do you think about Brexit in general, if you have any ideas on Brexit for Britain leaving the EU?
Man, I actually, sorry about that. I very much gained a lot of respect for Britain following Brexit because to me, and this is it, Britain leaving the EU is, in my opinion, at least significantly different from California trying to leave the United States. I think for Britain, it was a very, very good move considering how, from what it seems to be from an outsider perspective, that the EU is just this big, they're bullies and they're a gang and it's not even a good gang that works well. It's just crumbling and everything, the mass migration and just everything you hear in the news, at least from on my end, I see different like terrorist attack every other day, and I don't remember it being like that 10 years ago. It might be just because I wasn't so logged into the computer, but it seems like the world's getting crazier and crazier. So it was nice to see, even if it was a bad idea, 5 years from now, at least something happened. At least there was some sort of effort to go, you know what? We're done with this nonsense, this horrible relationship we have, and we're going to focus on us. And I saw it as the people betting on themselves, saying, you know what? We can do this by ourselves. We can do it. And so I gained, from my perspective, I saw, man, these people respect themselves enough to pull away from the EU. I fell in love a little bit, is all.
No worries. Appreciate that.
Brett, you have nothing to say about that Britisher at all? I mean, because there was, I mean, yeah. I mean, I felt like there was, it's not the same as Cal exit. I guess I'll leave it at that, because we are drawing long in the tooth. There were lots of reasons to do it, though. I don't always think that a person's vote, and without prodding the Britisher, because he's explained his vote and why he did it like 500 times on this channel. And so if I was to go on much further, I would be asking him to do that yet again. But people had different reasons for voting both ways. There were patriotic British people that voted Remain. There were patriotic British people that voted Brexit. But I think that real British people now would say, it's been voted on. Time to carry on and be British.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't probably said this enough, but for people like Britisher themselves, you could have an argument quite easily to say that they are more British than the people that actually voted to leave the EU. Because could you say that 100% of people that voted to leave the EU would do exactly the same thing if the roles were reversed? I don't think so. But then you have somebody that, like the Britisher, that is as British can be, and it's just like, no, democracy says that we have voted this way, so we are going to go this way. Mm-hmm. And that takes a special kind of person.
It's honorable, dare I say. I don't want to suck your dick too much, but it's that's being a good sport, which is something we seem to have completely forgotten about over here in America.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, over here, a fair number of professional footballers will take a dive in order to get that penalty. So, yes, when it comes to good sport, there is also a certain diminution going on over here, I'm afraid.
Yep. No.
Well, and boys, I'm going to tell y'all what, man. I think that Common Sense Guy might be time to just put a ribbon on this. We're going to wear this guest out. He's been wonderful to me. Like everybody else, I agree with everything he said. But I tell you, it's nice to see a young man, 28. Would you say 26?
28.
Under 30. 28. Under 30 anyway. At any rate, that actually uses his head for something other than a hat rack. And it reminds me that it don't matter if this is a waiter, bartender, somebody pumps your gas, somebody that's taking a tooth out because they're a dentist or whatever. I mean, we if we only look to a certain class for ideas, we forget that there are people in the world that decided that psychology, this is actually better, but could have done these things. And obviously, you have a deep mind. So, what do you think? Common Sense, Wild Smile, Britisher. We gonna put a bow on this?
Yeah. If we don't mind, I'll go first. Let Wild Smile sort of have an idea of what we do. So I'll go first on wrapping up. If Wild Smile wants to go after me, then he can. If Britisher wants to go after me, then he can, and we'll go from there.
Cheers. I think there are no real rules, Wild Smile, other than we don't. This is a final word, so no one, unless you ask a specific question of a panel member, no one's going to say a word. You could say Negro, 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 Negro. And I mean, maybe the Britisher or I would cut you off in about a minute, but we would let you do it for a while. So those are the only rules.
That's good to know.
Right. Well, okay. I suppose I better go first then. As it's my last final word, and as it's a case of, I don't really want to cover over the subjects that we've already covered. So I was going to do this as a surprise for a video that I was going to do tomorrow, but I thought I'll let everybody have a sneak preview of it today. What it is there is a train company in Germany that made free trains, and they made a competition up to decide what is going to be the name of one of their trains. And lo and behold, the public decided to call one of these trains Anne Frank. Yes, you heard me. They decided to call it Anne Frank. Now, to me, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's actually quite liberating to be able to have something that could have been classified as a persecution tool for that demographic to be classified now as a liberation of peace, to be able to make you travel to anywhere you want to go to, relive your dreams or anything else like that. But yet, everybody on the left-hand side of politics at this moment in time is condemning them, completely and utterly condemning them, saying that you are only doing this to actually believe that you're going to take the mickey out of the Jews. You're persecuting them again. You're now taking their name and you're desecrating their name, desecrating their holy grail, so to speak. And that's just not the case. It's what you would classify as a memorial. And I think people are forgetting that nowadays, where just generalizations of trying to produce something where you put somebody's name where you know it has a political meaning and you try and put a good spin on it to make sure that it's remembered, and to make sure that it's remembered in the right way as well. As in, it's now a symbolization of freedom, of being able to travel wherever you want to go. And yet, people are still trying to destroy that. And I think that kind of literally destroys my faith in humanity, where people are just using the fact of their own political views to go, no, that's not what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to do it this way. By what God-given right have you to decide what I should do with myself, and vice versa to me to you? And I'll leave that there. So, would you like to have a go, Wild Smile?
Yeah, I think I got something, a little bit of something brewing. So over, like I say, over the past year, but it's been brewing for a little bit longer than that. There has been an aroma of tribalism that has been superseding all of our cultures, right? At least in America, I can see that very clearly. There's an us versus them mentality, and this goes on both sides of every side of the political spectrum, even the people who are indifferent that just hate both sides. You all must be morons or stupid or retarded. They attack. It's funny. These same people will tell you that when you try to argue with them, you're insulting me, not my argument, but then they will proceed to insult you over your argument just a few minutes later. So what I'm getting at is tribalism is bad. We should always be open to talking to people, even when it's most difficult, and push ourselves rather, to speak to those when it is most difficult, because only then will we actually find a sensible truth. Somebody told me once that there are three truths. There's one side's truth, another side's truth, and the real truth that lies somewhere in between. And if we decide to take one side's truth as 100% fact, we will lose our ability to decide what is an agreed upon truth, because truth is a compromise between two perspectives. So that's my final point.
Oh, okay. I would like to talk about something that is in a similar area here, to be honest, because we have touched upon the two tribes and the idea of echo chambers, and yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I saw a clip by that guy T, and he said something that sparked something off in me, really. He was talking about the red pill black scenario, and he touched on something when he said, from what he had followed, that he hadn't followed her intensely, but from what he had seen of her, she had never really said anything particularly original, and that kind of started me thinking, because I think in that regard, when it comes to this whole YouTube game, this is in a way a team sport, and it is in a way beholden on us, the content providers, to try to be original, to try not to just regurgitate the same stories and the same angles over and over again, to try and have something to say, rather than just, okay, I've watched a few other people's videos. I will now do exactly the same thing, just in my voice. On the other hand side, I think it is also upon the audience, in a way, to I know this sounds strange. Here is a contents provider telling the audience what they ought to do, but I think it is also for them to be kind of critical of it, to kind of seek out those people who have something original to say, who actually spend time thinking about the subject, who try to analyze the subject. I mean, I remember, I think it was Sargon once in one video, it could have been on Dave Rubin, I'm not sure, where he actually said part of his job is not just making the videos, it is also just sitting around part of the day thinking about stuff. And if you don't do the thinking about stuff, then you just basically are one of the voices that just regurgitate. And when it came to Red Pill Black, what that guy T's point was really is, she was a very pretty face. She was obviously very welcome due to the fact that she was sort of the token black person. And in that regard, he knew exactly what he was talking about, given his ethnicity. So she was pretty. She was clearly very media. She is very media savvy. And she hit on all the conservative talking points. And within a very, very short space of time, she was what, twice as big as Vernaculus? And that's where I think, so here you've got someone who has dedicated quite a lot of time to really making thoughtful content. And then along comes a pretty face, and she says all the right things. And within a very short space of time, she has got all those subscriptions. And that's where I think it is also upon the audience to be discerning, to kind of really ask yourself, do you really want to hear someone who thinks about these things, who tries to give you an analysis? Or are you really just interested in hearing someone stroke your confirmation bias?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I see this as a kind of play of two sides. At one moment, it is upon us. We have a responsibility to actually produce something that is thoughtful. But at the same time, perhaps it is also upon the audience to seek out that which is more than just telling them what they like to hear. Anyway, Mr. Ogre, over to you.
Well, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. I wrote a couple notes, but I want to give Wild Smile. I heard you just grunt, and if you have anything else you'd like to add before I go, I just would like to give you another minute or two, if there's anything. And if not, there's no pressure. I've never done.
I appreciate it. I was just kind of stirring around. I turned the light on, moved some stuff. That grunt was just a,
no worries, no worries. Actually, the boys are probably, now I feel weird because I've never done that. I've never, ever done it. So I'm just going to act like nothing happened. And I want to say a couple things very quickly before I actually get my final word. I want to thank you very much, Common Senseguy. What a Britisher. What a boon. What a boon. Not only does he just mesh with our machinery, he was just like come in and just plopped right in, but he also time and again proves his worth by, I didn't know who this guy was, a Wild Smile, and I wish I did. You have a great fan base. I hate to use that word. You have a lot of subs. That's better. That makes me feel less icky. You have a lot of subs, and but I didn't know. And he turned. Not only did he show me your vids, which I enjoy, but also, I mean, Common Sense guy. I don't know what else to say. I don't want to go on, or that would be very un-British of me. And that's what we strive to do here, Wild Smile. We try to be British. This show was started half by a British gentleman called the Britisher. So now I'm just going to go right into my final word. Voices that aren't original, things that are echo chambers, things that it makes me think, Britisher. It just tell me, just say yes or no if you remember this. Remember the Dankula Donkula? And the guy was like, the one person give the story and said, he said Count Donkula. And then the next one just said Count Donkula because they didn't look into Count Dankula at all. They just heard the other YouTuber, and both the boys are sitting there with their play buttons, right, Britt, back behind them. But you remember that story, right?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yes, all right. I just wanted confirmation on that because I tell you, it goes beyond not being a repeater. Some folks on YouTube in this medium will make it because they tell people how to put makeup on, or they pander to one side or the other. I mean, I could think, in fact, I'm going to name two people, Steven Crowder and Talk Islam. They had a little spat between each other. And yes, but two extremes. I like Steven Crowder. I watch his stuff, but does he pander? I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional, but it happens. To save this from going forever, what I want to convey that would take me an hour and a half is this. There is a time and a place for everything. We should accept what that is. We should find what it is that we not only enjoy, but what challenges us. Are we going to do it? I doubt it. I don't have faith in mankind, folks. I'm not going to lie. I don't believe that, as Britisher was saying about, no, it's not going to happen. They're always going to choose the vines and the lighting farts on fire. So, Wild Smile, he's got 30-some thousand subs. He's going to get more. Thank goodness, because someone else young like him with a nice, easy to listen to voice, they could easily get, 300,000 by doing what I just mentioned. Just, silly nonsense. So I guess I'm going to leave it at this. Thanks a lot for showing up, folks. It's tough to know what's right and what's wrong in life. No, it's not. That's a lie. Don't believe that. Everybody knows what they should do. I want to believe that nonsense, but I can't even go on the vein I was going to make it a big debate. It's not a debate. Make sure you thumbs up this video, like it, subscribe. Go check out TheBritisher. Go check out Wild Smile. Definitely go check out Common Senseguy. Why? Because we want you to. And be good to your friends. Be good to your family members. Be good to your loved ones. Be quick to say you're sorry. Be even quicker to accept an apology, especially when that thing your friend, your family member, your loved one has done seems to be so huge, you'll never be able to forget about it. Because constant viewers are beloved supporters. At a time you think not, your friends, your family members, your loved ones, your life and your cause will depart from you.